sitting in the office when we first met. His shoulders were tight. He spoke very fast. His energy was at an all-time high. I could feel it in my body, what was happening in his body, and he was not even aware that he was running on adrenaline. He thought that adrenaline was power. We started talking about things that were important to him and things that he wanted to achieve by working with me. I talked about measurables and non-measurables. He went right to the measurables, wanting to talk about hitting the goal, meeting the numbers, pedal to the metal. He had 4 more years before he exited his company, before he retired. I could feel in my body the shaking inside of himself as he spoke about the word retirement. I went deeper and asked him, "What's really important to you?" He immediately said his kids. He said how much he loved his kids, how much he wanted to be in relationship with his kids. And right there, I stopped him and I asked him, "Are you in relationship with your kids?" He took a deep breath, swallowed, and said, "My kids have always been number 2 to my company. My company has always been number 1. I saw the dread inside of him. I felt the pain in his body. He knew something was off, but his mind was driven to be successful. His company had passed the 8-figure mark, and he had the exit planned and knew that this was a pivotal moment in choice. He was wanting to make sure that his partners knew that he was operating at his best and didn't let up all the way to the end. I said, "What about your kids? How's your relationship with your kids?" And he said, "It's almost non-existent." He's put so much time and energy into his company and organization that his kids became second. And then I asked him about his significant other. That's when I felt him drop into his body and feel the intensity. He'd been divorced for over 10 years and had yearned deeply to find the love of his life. He thought it was impossible at his age, at his stage, to even consider having somebody that meant the world to him. I reminded him that adrenaline is not power, that through him continuously pushing and trying to achieve and bring himself to a state that he thought was that heightened state through training athletically for marathons, hitting that 2:30 mark, 3:30 mark that he's always dreamed of. The way that he approached his work, the way that he approached his partner, the way that his partners, the way that he approached his kids. He was going to have to let go of the way that he saw things and the way that things were operating. I said, if we're going to work together, you're going to have to let go of how you've created your world and be willing to try new things that he's probably never dreamed of or that his mind would tell him not to do. His body was breaking down and his mind kept pushing on. I asked him when's the last time he stopped. And he says he always thinks about work. He always thinks about creating and making money, getting that next customer. And I said, that's exactly where we're going to get to start. See, the power lies in stillness, not in pushing. And especially when you're at that level where you've been in the game for decades and you've been pushing your whole entire life, a lot like when you were in your 20s and 30s, it's time to do things differently. I offered him a new way of looking at things, from starting out his morning with a few deep breaths in order to just slow everything down, because he would wake up at a certain time, he'd be at the office by a certain time, everything was done on a tight schedule. And through slowing down, I offered that as he opened to the possibility of him meeting the partner of his dreams. He giggled and got a smile to him, and I said, that right there. How would that feel in your body to meet the woman of your dreams and have the relationship with your kids that you've always wanted. It's going to start by putting relationships and your kids number one, and your business being number two. And he said, oh, I can't do that. My numbers have to stay up. I constantly need to be growing and pushing. And so I said, if we're going to work together, things are going to have to be different. I'm going to ask you to put your kids at number one and relationships at number one. It doesn't mean you try anything different or that you do anything different in your company, but yet that you make the kids a priority. You make finding your soulmate a priority. He took a deep breath, looked me in the eyes, and I could see a tear in his eyes. He said, if I found my soulmate, that's what I really want out of our relationship together. Finding somebody that I could spend the rest of my life with and having my kids back. This is why you enter the dojo. You see, when you're operating from high performance, constant output, and hitting your numbers, this is where fear is disguised as productivity. This is where your life is out of alignment and you think you're being productive. You think you're living a integrated or balanced life when you're really pushing on adrenaline, pushing through fear. You're driven by fear. And most entrepreneurs operate from a fear-based fuel or energy. And operating from fuel of fear, that this is where it gets toxic. This is where, as you start to develop and become a senior leader or founder, that fear driving your reality starts to create health conditions, starts to create separation in relationships. It ultimately drives you to deterioration and non-fulfillment. Integration is one of the key areas that entrepreneurs and senior leaders find their balance when they start to integrate their relationships, their body, and a spiritual practice into their work and their legacy. And for a lot of entrepreneurs, it's a foreign concept to really take and challenge yourself in these areas of your body, your spiritual practice, and relationships at the same level that you do with your work. This is where having a sensei, having a spot of the dojo where you train daily at integrating this side of yourself, doing things differently, because the way you've done things currently are not working anymore. Most entrepreneurs and founders operate like toxic warriors where their sword is always drawn. They never put it back in the sheath and take the time to calm their nervous system, to really integrate and be present on a daily basis. They're constantly operating from fight or flight. And it's worked in the past. I get it. I was that exact guy. I had 7 companies. I was pushing hard. I was traveling back and forth from Hawaii to California. And for about 3 years, my wife didn't have a husband. My son didn't have a father. I knew what that was like to operate on that adrenaline. It was fucking good. And I also knew if I stayed on this path that me and Amber wouldn't be together. That my son would grow up without a father. Me making work and my title more important than my relationships. Not to mention my body was suffering and I didn't have a spiritual practice at all. I let it go. I ignored it. Said, I don't need that. I'm going to keep it in the closet. I've done it a long time before. It's time to do things differently. It's time to train at a level of an Olympic athlete, because your life depends on it. My life did depend on it. My health was declining. My relationship was declining. When I slowed down, it felt like I was being unproductive. When I really got still, it was some of the most painful thinking and judgments on myself that I've experienced in a long time. I thought the pressure is the thing that keeps success running for me. The pressure is the thing that has me operating at my best. And I kept sitting, I kept being daily practicing stillness and silence, meditating every day, starting out with 1 minute and moving up to 20 minutes a day. I could feel myself sharpening as I continued to move forward with being still every morning to start my day. It didn't make sense. I didn't see the results in it that I thought I should see. I judged it a lot. And it's not about judging it or trying to get anywhere. I would slowly get up from 5 o'clock to 4:30 in the morning to ultimately 4 a.m. in the morning. And I'm not saying you have to get up at 4 a.m. in the morning. Starting your day 10, 15, 20 minutes earlier than you normally do to sit in stillness and silence, to sharpen your sword, to really start to integrate that through this stillness and silence, it's actually building your leadership to the next level. It was hard for me to understand. It's hard for a lot of the people I work with to integrate this portion of training. And it's one of the foundational pieces in taking to the next level and not being fear-driven, being purpose-driven. Finding yourself, finding who you are on the inside from the neck down, not only being driven by fear, pressure, and obligations or energies from other people. Calm became my new strength. Calm became my new leadership. I was the last one to speak in meetings, not the first. I didn't have to have every word be rebutted by me. Calm became my power. Burnout is energy spent in the wrong direction. You see, your nervous system gets to become your compass. Focusing on your body and training your nervous system to be calm and relaxed, not always on fight or flight. That's where this training becomes optimal for leadership and enhances the way all your relationships manifest and create, from new ventures to the current ones that you have, family and loved ones, and especially your significant other. And if you currently don't have a significant other, slowing down is one of the fastest ways to bring in that right person into your life in order to attract the right partner. And through patience and presence and having a clear direction of what you want, this is where you find happiness. This is where you find success. It no longer becomes about the numbers only. It becomes a both and. Balancing life with stillness creates more movement in your life than you've ever experienced. The focus that comes when you sit in stillness, that when you get up from your chair or pillow, that it brings you to a new place that you've never experienced before. Opportunities and doing ways of business, the way you lead your team starts to become more aligned, and you feel the presence in the room. You feel your employees and your staff. You feel your kids, your partner, and the rest of your family around you. You start to have relationships with all of them instead of them being an object. Alignment births momentum. This founder that I work with, he's brilliant. His mind is incredible. His body is running at a rate that most people would not understand. But yet it was collapsing around him. Everything looked good on the outside, but internally he was collapsing. And through 10 minutes a day of sitting in stillness and silence, that's where we began. That's where his journey began in operating from this new level of leadership. He moved from collapse to integration to expansion. He was able to take his company and double it in the first year. He also found the woman of his dreams. After our first session together, he got clarity and alignment in the qualities of his ideal partner. By the time we were done, he recognized that one of his friends actually introduced him to this woman, and he ended up marrying her. He's closer to his kids than he's ever been before, and he's even has an extended family now. His company continues to grow and up-level as he prepares to transition out of his organization. Entering into the dojo is not an easy place to train, but is essential to integrate as an entrepreneur and a founder, to feel fully fulfilled on purpose and coming from presence. I invite you into the dojo.